Hello everyone, welcome back to the show. My name's Dan, this is Exploder, and in this episode, I'm going to do things a little different. When you hear this, by the time you hear this, I am in Virginia, which is the home of Tony Atlas, Big Bully Busick, and the Shockmaster, which is a great company to keep. I will not be seeing any of them, certainly not Busick because he's dead, but I am not in the Exploder studio, so I'm not there to record a brand new episode. So I've decided to do the old fallback, the old standby that a lot of podcasts do a best of. Now, so far I've only had about 51 episodes. So whether it's a best of or just a clip show, make it what you will. So I just wanted to introduce that. So this is going to be some clips of older episodes just to hold you over. And I promise I will have a new episode up next week when I am finally back in the studio. So until then, enjoy the best of Exploder. This little clip goes back to episode 12 where I talk about WCW disasters, both big and small. And I started with the creation and immediate burial of the character Seven and the debacle that was Blood Runs Cold. Enjoy. Let's start with the debut/killing of the character Seven. After leaving the WWF in 1998, Dustin Rhodes found himself once again under the employ of WCW, a place he had been previously. He was the kind of guy that went back and forth between WWE and WCW, unquestionably having better success in WWE in the mid-90s as Goldust. This was after the Goldust character had had its run. He was released, he goes to WCW, and they start doing these weekly vignettes of this creepy-looking Uncle Fester-looking son of a bitch called Seven. And the whole video package was him outside of a child's bedroom staring in. And I mean white. I mean like he was painted white like a house, even up to his eyelids, like he was completely white. And the character was supposed to be creepy, but really it was the wrong kind of creepy. It wasn't Undertaker creepy. It was like that one uncle you go to the family reunions at and you know hugs his nieces a little too long. Like that level creepy. At best, he was a weirdo that looked in people's rooms at night. At worst, he was a pedophile and had a van out front with candy spray painted on the side. Like, that was it. So Time Warner realized what's going on, and I don't know who made the decision, but someone along the way made the decision that this needs to get killed right away, because it basically made him look like a pedophile out the gate. So he does this whole thing where he floats to the ring, this very articulate thing, and you're going to see a theme here, these really ornate entrances for characters that are just god-awful. I'm looking at you, Kiss Demon. And so he comes to the ring, and the first thing he does is tells him to cut off the music, and then just buries the gimmick. And just says, oh, you know, they fired my dad, they had fired Dusty Rhodes, and they got me looking, and he literally said Uncle Fester. Like, I didn't make that up. He said that in the promo. Looking like Uncle Fester, I think the gimmick sucks, and he kills it. So, they spend weeks and weeks debuting this, and they kill it in the first promo. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because I don't know if Seven would have gone anywhere, but the whole thing, it was like the Emelina thing years later. It was a build-up to something that immediately undercut itself right out the gate. So, it was short, but it was still a disaster. Speaking of debuts that really had a lot of promotion behind it that didn't go anywhere, Blood Runs Cold. Just those three words, and any wrestling fan, especially ones who knew WCW in the mid-90s, anyone who is a wrestling fan knows what that means. Blood Runs Cold was an angle created to capitalize on Mortal Kombat video games in general, and they brought in a guy named Ray Lloyd, and he was Glacier. Who was basically a knockoff of Sub-Zero. It's very well established. And his enemy was a guy named Mortis, who was supposedly a pit fighter, played by Chris Kanyon with like a skull mask. And he was managed by James Vandenberg. And they integrated a guy named Wrath, who was Brian Clark, Atom Bomb, whatever you want to call him. And then they brought in Ernest Miller, which was a weird pairing, but it was karate. And they spend weeks, months of these video packages explaining the Glacier character, explaining what's going on, explaining he had this weird looking like bronze like helmet, and they explained his sensei gave it to him, and all of these things. This was a lot of stuff building into this angle. And they debuted him on Nitro, live on Nitro, and they immediately put him in an angle with Mortis, because Mortis was like packaged in. It was like when you came in, these four guys, really three, and Vandenberg, but they were brought in, but it was like this package deal. Right out the gate, you had an immediate feud for him, another guy who was debuting. Chris Kanyon had been part of the pit crew, and of course made millions of advertising dollars from that. But he decided he was going to try this Mortis thing, you know, as a favor to the boss. And they come in, and it was explained like they looked like they were two guys who had sit in a warehouse practicing karate moves, and they did. That's pretty much the reason it was. Now, they come in, they're given this angle. WCW, talking about entrances of characters that didn't go anywhere, they actually spent a bunch of money on lasers for Glacier's entrance, because there was a whole laser light show thing. They had to employ a guy to actually do that. So every time he debuted, they had to bring a guy into these lasers. Now, I have not confirmed this, but I've heard this. That's all it is. Take it for what it is. But I heard that instead of using like the fake snow, like the shredded paper that movies and things use, that they actually trucked in real snow. And I mind you that although he debuted on Nitro, he ended up doing a bunch of matches in Universal Studios in Florida. And yeah, so he was having matches against the Gambler with a blue light on him, a laser in his entrance, and real snow in Florida. Yeah, that costs a lot of money. And it was a big thing for this entrance. They always did the blue lights and the whole gig. Yeah, the guys that succeeded from this angle, the biggest problem with this angle was, real quick, the biggest problem with this angle was it came about around the same time as the NWO. So while you have Scott Hall and Kevin Nash coming in as their real names, brother, and the NWO was becoming this major thing, here you had two guys doing karate moves with a laser light and blue lights and snow, and James Vandenberg was a collector of oddities, and one was a pit fighter, and then there was a big guy with a giant mask thing named Wrath, and it was a cartoon. It was like the Dungeon of Doom next to the Horseman. These are two entirely separate things. And the NWO was catching on, and reality was catching on, and guys were jumping from the WWF to WCW and using their real names, or in the case of Virgil, he became Vincent, as a shot to the other guy, and wonder what happened to him. And so all this stuff, this gimmicky stuff's happening at the same time. Well, you have the Cartoon Network running over here, so it's like TNT's running Gods and Generals, and Cartoon Network's doing Ed, and Eddie. They're two entirely separate things, but like, what if they were the same show? That's how diametrically opposed these things were. So that was and WCW knew it. They put all this time promoting it. They knew it. Jim Mitchell, who was James Vandenberg, told the story of as soon as he signed with the company, Bischoff sits him down the first time. He talks to him and says, hey, we've dropped the ball on this 2 or 3 times. So he's coming in basically being told, you're already sunk. Everyone who succeeded in this angle succeeded in spite of Blood Runs Cold, not because of it. Ernest Miller carved out a niche for himself as Ernest the Cat Miller, and he became a really creative guy, very funny, had a great personality, surprisingly, and became a good character. Actually worked for WWE for a little bit and was a really talented guy. And even when he was released from WWE, people liked him. He was an entertaining guy. Wrath went on a minor streak while Goldberg's doing his streak in late '98. Wrath has his own little mini streak going on, and of course that streak was also ended by Kevin Nash because he had to collect the whole set. And so he succeeded. He ended up being part of Chronic with Bryan Adams, and they succeeded. They were, very successful in WCW's later days. They had one match in the WWF as Chronic, and it's considered a war crime, so didn't go well. Anyway, Mortis, of course, kept the mask on. He ended up taking the mask off and joining the flock with Raven. He became Canyon, which led to the Jersey Triad, Positive at Canyon. Chris Champagne Canyon worked for WWE for a while, and again, he did well in spite of that. He was in the Pit Crew. He was in Minute Work, I think. I'm pretty sure he was in Minute Work, the construction tag team gimmick. He was Mortis, and then Canyon on, he was very successful. So he succeeded in spite of Blood Runs Cold. The only guy, and James Mitchell, James Vandenberg, what have you, ended up working in WCW managing Mikey Whipwreck and ended up blowing a hole in his stomach. So, not everyone's a winner here. Glacier would stick around. He would eventually become Coach Buzz Stern, who was a coach, gym teacher type character who worked on the B&C shows before coming back as Glacier, and they made the whole gimmick a joke, having someone do like a voiceover for him, like this weird superhero type thing that no one bought, and he ended up being a stuntman. And last I remember, I saw him on Burn Notice, which was a really great show. So, he didn't succeed from it, but, he had a couple good years out of him. Anyway, so again, this was another one, a big production, but the end result was just not that good, and it was a disaster in its own way. It wasn't life-changing. Blood Runs Cold wasn't going to save or destroy WCW, but in its own little microcosm, it did what it needed to do. It could have done better, but it wasn't bad, but it was, in its own little way, it was a disaster.
This next clip goes back to an episode called Spite Club, where I talk about gimmicks that were created exclusively out of spite. In this particular segment, I talk about the birth and success of the right to censor.
which brings us to arguably the most successful gimmick created purely out of spite in the WWF's history. That's right, the right to censor. The Parents Television Council was run by a guy named L. Brent Bozell, which, in addition to sounding like a guy who was born with a tie on, he was also a leader of a group that was insanely Christian, insanely censor-friendly, and even recruited former wrestling fan Steve Allen. Steve Allen, of course, appeared at WrestleMania 6 with the Bolsheviks in the bathroom, I'm not joking, but had since turned against professional wrestling and what he saw as not family-friendly. Well, I think I could speak for all wrestling fans when I say we saw family-friendly in the early 90s, and it wasn't a great thing. It created the Repo Man. So, your move, Steve Allen. Anyway, so as time went on, instead of not watching television, instead of just simply turning the TV off when WWF programming came on, L. Brent Bozell, the Parents Television Council, Steve Allen, and co. decided they wanted the government to censor television. When they realized that wasn't going to happen, they started writing letters to advertisers on WWF programming, arguing that it did this and that and was terrible and it was horrible for people's morals, and of course, being advertisers, some of them caved in, gave up entirely because they couldn't stand the idea of being separated from their money. In response, the WWF created a group just to lambast them a little bit more called the Right to Censor. Stevie Richards wasn't doing a whole lot, so they shaved his head, or got his hair cut at least, and made him Steven Richards. He recruited a porn star, Val Venus, a pimp, the Godfather, who became the Good Father, former prison guard Bull Buchanan, and Ivory, because she was the one on the women's roster who looked most like a school marm. The group would actually be quite successful, having feuds with Jerry Lawler, the Cat, the APA, the Dudley Boys, before eventually being destroyed and eaten whole by The Undertaker. The whole gimmick was created to spite the Parents Television Council. Their entrance music was just simply noises and buzzers. It was the most awful thing you ever heard in your life, and it was intended to be such. I mean, they were destroyed in one night by The Undertaker, but until then, they actually had a good run. So again, they created a successful gimmick out of pure spite against a crazy right-wing Christian who didn't know when to shut up. WWE takes controversy and turns it into something amazing. Not everyone liked the RTC. I know no one liked the music, but it was different and it was a response to what was actually happening at the time, and it worked within the Attitude Era framework. So for a spite gimmick, it was actually pretty successful.
Sometimes on Exploder, I do things a little different. In this case, I wanted to share with you one more time my exclusive interview with Vince McMahon. Warning. The following is the work of satire for a wrestling podcast. All comments were curated from existing interviews and do not necessarily represent the views of Vince McMahon or WB Incorporated. And seriously, if you think I'm important enough to get an interview with Vince McMahon, it says more about you than it does me. Hello, Vince. May I call you Vince?
Mr. Austin?
It's not my name, but okay.
First of all, I'm not afraid of The Undertaker, not afraid of Bret Hart, not afraid of you, not afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, not afraid of any man in this arena, not afraid of any man who walks on this earth. I am fearless.
Kind of an odd way to start an interview, but all right. All right, let's get right to it. Tell me about your children.
My testicles are the size of grapefruits.
You should probably get that looked at. Also, how do you explain the disparity between stars in NXT and how they're treated when they reach the main roster?
I enjoy destroying lives.
What would you tell the fans?
Life sucks, and then you die.
But what about wrestling fans?
What was that phrase you just used?
Wrestling?
You're in the sports entertainment business.
Yeah, you've been very clear about that. You're 73 years old. How do you feel?
I hurt all over.
I'm amazed by your candor. All right, changing gears. Why don't you like Ted Turner?
He's a son of a bitch.
Right. Any other reason?
He made me beg.
Okay.
He made me cry.
I didn't know you could do that.
He made me get down on my knees.
All right, that's enough of that story.
I am no pervert.
Well, you have suggested a couple incest storylines.
No question about it.
But let's move on. The WWE...
I created it.
Right, but you fired Arn Anderson, 2 writers and an agent have quit, and wrestlers are trying to get out of their contracts left and right. What's going on in the WWE right now?
Chaos, obviously.
And how do you plan on fixing it?
I'm gonna kill my creation.
Interesting plan.
I'm gonna kill it.
You sure that's a good idea?
I'm Vince McMahon.
Didn't know that was in dispute, but anyway, so you're telling me you're just giving up at this point?
No question about it.
Wow, that's concerning.
I look at it from a different standpoint.
Such as?
Well, I will certainly take responsibility for any decision I've ever made. I've never had a problem doing that. Not that all of my decisions are accurate. They're not.
Yeah, anyone who watched the WWF in 1995 could have told you that. So what are your plans going forward?
I think I'm going to go to the nearest nudie bar and have a drink.
But how does that address, so your new plan is...
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
That's the new plan?
Well, we can either do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way.
What are you getting at?
This is a strange business.
Yeah, you said the N-word on live TV. We know.
It's me, Austin! It was me all along!
I don't see... What? Back on topic. What are your plans for the WWE Network?
Well, actually, things are going real well with the XFL. I'm glad you asked.
So you're just going to answer whatever question you want now? All right, screw it. How'd you get rid of Todd Pettengill?
With a lethal dose of poison.
Can't blame you there. Anything else you'd like to tell the listeners?
I've lost all faith in humanity.
We both have. Any chance I could get a job?
No chance in hell!
Okay, that was just your theme song.
You're fired!
Well, lasted longer than I thought I would. Are you even trying anymore?
What a ridiculous statement.
Oh, but answering a question with a song clip is perfectly fine. I see how it is.
You want to let me finish here for a second, pal?
Gladly.
Oh, you disappoint me.
Me? I didn't create Bastion Booger, so who's disappointing who here?
Shut your mouth and let me answer the question, all right? I'll be happy to answer.
Sure, go ahead.
Where the hell are your values?
Somewhere higher than yours.
Where were you in my hour of need?
Watching WCW until you got rid of the fake Diesel. What do you think?
You might have some support from this audience, but 95% of them are idiots.
Who said I had an audience? Anyway, that's going to do it for our interview. All things considered, thank you for coming on. Is there anything else you'd like to share before you go?
I am no pervert.
I'll take your word for it.
And this final clip is from the episode called And Then It Gets Weird, where I talk about the weird and odd parts of professional wrestling. I assure you, I will do another episode like this in the future. But this one we're talking about with the prevalence of the 24/7 Championship, the title that started it all, the DDT Iron Man Championship. Check it out.
And now, when talking about weird, we have to go to hand because, well, you know, you've seen the news. In this case, we're talking about DDT Pro Wrestling. What part of DDT Pro Wrestling? All of it. That's the answer. But more particularly, I want to talk about the Iron Man Championship, which was the equivalency of the WWF Hardcore title, but a whole lot more screwed up. Like everything you saw with Crash Holly defending the belt at a Chuck E. Cheese, in a hotel room, at baggage claims, all that. Take that, sprinkle in a little crystal meth, and go nuts. That's the only way I can explain this. I'm going to my best ability, explain to you some of the non-wrestlers who have held the Iron Man Championship during the run of DDT. And by the way, DDT still exists. So this is up to date. This is a comprehensive list till now, and it's still going. So just keep that in mind. The DDT Iron Man Championship has been held by a man named Danshoku Dino, who makes Joey Ryan's dick spot look like Lou Thez. Okay, if you've never seen it, type it into. I can't even explain it to you. Type in Danshoku Dino, however you think it's spelled, just try and put Dino. It'll get there. And watch some of his matches. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's ridiculous on a level I can't even explain, and it's ridiculous that I'm pretty sure it's given Jim Cornette a bunch of aneurysm. And honestly, in this, I can't blame him here. So, in addition to Danshoku Dino, who's an actual wrestler, he's a comedy wrestler, but a wrestler, and Joey Ryan, who I'll get to, the Iron Man Championship has also been held by a ladder. The DDT Iron Man Championship has been held by a ladder 3 times. Three times a ladder has physically held a title. That's just the beginning. Former champions also include a random chef who got the belt after beating a wrestler in a party room in a hotel in Nagata, Japan. He would lose in the stairway of that same hotel to an actual wrestler. Kitty-chan, a Hello Kitty doll, who was defeated by another stuffed doll named Ma-kun. Then, of course, you have the wrestlers Shinobu and Miyamoto. Not the Mario one. Traded the belt 303 times in a single night. Then, later, at another show, they traded the belt another 60 times via rock, paper, scissors. Oh yeah, this is the kind of stuff that's happening in DDT for this particular title. Crazy SKB won the title and then put it up for auction. That title was won, the auction was won by Naoshi Sano. Then there was Kokolo, a mini Dashant, who then was defeated by a referee, a baseball bat, who was upstaged by the ladder by only being champion 1 time. And I'm going to try these names. I don't know Japanese that well, so pardon me, and I hope you don't be beating my ass. Ayari Ueda, Shiori Takahashi, and Manabe Tanabe. 3 Japanese schoolgirls who became co-champions by beating a wrestler. Because in Japan, if you do anything, eventually it has to involve Japanese schoolgirls. That's the law. A porn star, but at this point sounds like the most sane pick in the whole group. And like I've said before, and then it gets weird. Akihiro, a sex doll. A chicken doll with a name I'm not even going to attempt to name. I'm not even going to try it. Kasai Shi, a stuffed doll of Japanese garbage wrestler Yun Kasai. The Big Japan Pro Wrestling ring truck. Not sure how that works out, but here we are. A desk at a small venue in Japan. Yoshihiko, the brother sex doll of the previous sex doll. Yoshihiko had held the belt 6 times. There would then be 4 versions of this Yoshihiko character. Two of them were killed when their heads were popped. The third one was, and I'm quoting them here, the third Yoshihiko was shot to death, and the fourth one, currently wrestling, looks like Hulk Hogan. It is a literal blow-up doll that wrestlers have matches with. Take bumps. It gets ridiculous. But wait, there's more. A separate desk from the one before. So now 2 separate desks have been championed. A dish, a bunch of rice, some curry, a minced cutlet, whatever the hell that is. At this point, they're just getting beaten by food. I don't know how to explain that. A ringside mat at the Ice Ribbon Dojo. None of that sentence makes any sense. A pint of beer, apparently. A painting, a pork bun, a steel chair, and at one point, the Iron Man title was champion of itself, I guess. I don't know. At some point, the title became the champion of the title. Inception. The editor of Tokyo Sports newspaper. A cat named Bunny, who was then defeated by Ryan Nemeth, an actual human being, when he traded the cat a cat treat for the title. Scarlett Bordeaux, again, an actual wrestler and woman who lost the belt to Rhino, yes, that one, in exchange for his autograph. Jervis Cottonbelly, real name I'm sure, lost the belt after being tickled by the referee, telling him to stop, and the referee took that as a submission. A person cosplaying as Spider-Man. No, they didn't pretend he was Spider-Man. They admitted, flat out, this is a person cosplaying as Spider-Man. Because why not at this point? Candice LeRae defeated Joey Ryan in a dream, which counted an entire wrestling show audience, the entire audience, who were then defeated by Joey Ryan somehow. You know what? I'm beginning to see why Jim Cornette hates him. I'm not gonna lie. Doing the dick spot and somehow defeating an whole audience. Yeah, I see it. Vince McMahon's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Did I mention to you that these shows are almost exclusively in Japan? I'm not sure how that went about, but here we are. A printed email, a bus. When a wrestler submitted after getting caught in the door, the bus was then actually defeated by the bus driver. Scottish wrestler Joe Hendry wins the title belt, throws it in the trash can because he hates comedy wrestling. The trash can then becomes the Iron Man champion. Then, some what culture YouTube guy called Jack the Jobber pins the trash can and becomes the champion. Yes, this really happened. A single audience member, a pair of disposable chopsticks, Yacht-chan, a monkey, a member of a J-pop group, because at this point, why the hell not? Another member of a different J-pop group, and on and on. And in the middle of this, there are wrestlers and referees and all these things. These are just the crazy ones. All in all, as of October 2018, there have been over 1,300 title changes for this one belt in this small independent promotion in Japan. Now, for reference, the WWF Hardcore belt, which had the 24/7 rule, which we all remember from Crash Holly, moving this, that, and the other, the 24/7 rule, the entire Hardcore title for the WWF changed hands a total of 240 times. 240. This one title, the Iron Man Championship, this one title changed hands 13 times during a single show, if that tells you anything. So if you want to talk about weird in professional wrestling, look no further. Look no further than the DDT and the Iron Man Championship. This is the kind of weird stuff. I don't know how to explain it. Like, if you had to explain this to someone who didn't watch wrestling, you couldn't. I couldn't explain all this. Like, I'm explaining this to wrestling fans, and I know there's some people listening right now who've never heard of this, who don't know what this is, and I'm sure some of them have their mouths open right now because this is insane. Now, me, I'm used to it because I've dealt with DDT before. I know who Dan Shokudino is. I know who Yoshihiko is. And not even a real person, but I know what it is, you know. I knew a ladder held the title. I didn't know the ladder held it 3 times. I didn't know about the stuffed dolls. They have a thing for stuffed dolls. But yeah, so, you know, when we're talking about weird, you don't get much weirder than DDT in the Iron Man Championship. So, yeah, what do you have to say about that? It's this kind of stuff I love professional wrestling, and I know this, some of the old school guys, this drives them crazy. This kind of stuff would drive some of them. I'm pretty sure Ole Anderson, if he knew about this, and he wasn't using dial-up from 1993 to call AOL to complain about his service, or, you know, whatever, or wondering why he doesn't get the Dumont network anymore, I'm sure sure if Ole Anderson knew about this, he would probably want to firebomb Japan again. You know, this is ridiculous, but there's some, I know there's some traditionalists who don't like this kind of crap, but it is what it is. You know, culturally, you have to understand there are different standards. The wrestling in Japan is going to be different. It's going to be in Mexico, which is going to be different than America. Comedy is done different in America than it's going to be done in Japan, and so on and so forth. But yeah, talking about weird, I think this tops the cake.
Well, that's going to do it for this time. Thank you for being here, listening to the Best of Exploder. I am not in the studio. Like I said, I'm in Virginia. Have been there for a few days now. On my first vacation in about 3 years, and I'm spending some time with my wife. But I wanted to put together this little compilation just to tell you that I'm still talking, I'm still thinking, and I will have a new episode next week. So until then, my name's Dan, this Exploder. Have a good one.